I am here today with this extremely fun, dare I say addictive, DAWLESS combo that needs to be a little bit dusted off. When I say DAWLESS, I mean a single piece of gear or maybe a gear combination electronic music hardware that doesn't involve a modern software DAW. As I'm sure a lot of you guys know, I've been really into the techno thing recently and just trying to find my voice in this genre using mostly hardware. And this combo with the PerFourmer Mark II in particular, it's forced me into what seems to be like an entirely new genre altogether. It's hard not to be melodic with the PerFourmer. This in the synth world, and by the way, for those of you who don't know, it's a 4-voice monophonic synthesizer. I think a great comparison would be the TR-8S in the drum machine world, which is another drum machine that's super hands-on. All of your controls are right in front of you. The PerFourmer is even more so of that. Like there's no menu diving whatsoever. It's all here. It's very simple too. It's all just like staring at you right in the face. Whereas the Digitakt II, of course, is a lot more condensed in comparison, which is what I think makes this such a great combination. And in terms of the setup, what are each of these units covering? So we have the Digitakt II, which is covering so much territory in this setup. It's covering all of my drums, which in this case are all one-shots. These are the drums all together. It's also being the mixer of the PerFourmer, so let me just unmute this bass part here. Maybe the second synth voice as well. So this is all going through the mixer here. The mixer has some effects as well, so in this case we have some delay, quite a bit of reverb, as well as chorus on all of the incoming audio from the PerFourmer. So that just gives it a bit of a vibe, and that's actually something to mention about the PerFourmer. It has, in my opinion, like very high quality oscillators that are just begging to be effects. But the audio coming out dry, let's actually take these effects off and play the audio, let's say just on this synth track. It's obviously very dry sounding because it's just an oscillator. There's literally nothing else going on underneath the hood. Everything, like I said, is right in front of you. And in my opinion, I think that's the point of the PerFourmer. It encourages you to sort of customize the sound of it by using your own effects, in which case you're gonna, start using maybe some hardware or even software effects. And in this case, I find that the Digitakt's mixer effects just work perfectly. All of the internal audio, so coming from the Digitakt itself, let's actually just mute these. So these are all of our drums, and I'm gonna go back to the compressor page of the mixer. Everything is being sidechained to track 9, which is the kick. And you can really hear this when I play with the master compressor here. So let's full compression. I think that's just too much. And then taking it off. Right, so I like it somewhere in the middle. Gives a nice little bounce. And we could really hear that sidechain compression if I actually mute everything except for this pad that I have here. And you could sort of hear the pad wrapping itself around the kick. So that's great, I like that. Another thing that's worth mentioning, you'll notice that for once I'm not using the Oxy 1 as a sequencer. It's an excellent sequencer that I feel like I need a little breather from, and then I'll revisit it with some fresh ears or like a fresh sort of workflow. Plowing ahead with what the Digitakt is doing in this setup. Again, it's sequencing all 4 of these voices on the PerFourmer. So all 4 of these voices are MIDI machines. If I wanted to, I could go into the MIDI CC information and start to param lock stuff from the PerFourmer. I didn't want to do that because I wanted to use the PerFourmer hands-on, like I think it's meant to be used. So the only thing that the Digitakt is sequencing is the notes. Just to confirm that the Digitakt is covering a lot of territory in this setup. We have the RMX 1000 to the left of the Digitakt here, which is basically just being used as an effects unit specifically for the PerFourmer. So none of my drums are being touched by this. Let's say if I throw a low pass onto here, and my drums keep going. So this is a great transitional tool, of course. Crush audio. And then maybe come back with just the bass. To me, the RMX 1000 almost feels like an extension of the PerFourmer because, again, it's very hands-on. I basically only use, mostly, this little bop it section over here, all of the different effects that I could choose. I've done a full hands-on video specifically on the RMX 1000 if you'd like to check that out. So we're gonna go a bit more in depth on how I actually came up with this track idea, how I came up with the parts. For me, this track specifically was one of those oh shit moments where I found a groove and I really just kept going with it. And I'd like to show you where I ended up or how I got there. Before that though, a word from today's sponsor, me. I'm sponsoring the video today. I now have a platform that I've developed over the past year or so. It's called Orbit Music, and it's where all of my sample packs live. And today is my first official announcement of my latest sample pack called Project 909. I've been working on this pack for a while, so I'm super excited about this release. And all of the one-shots, all the drums here that you're gonna hear today, they're all from that sample pack. The pack also has a bunch of other like longer form, multi-tracked out grooves, some of which sound a little something like this. And make sure to use the code 909-25 to get a 25% discount on Project 909. If you'd rather like a sample, more condensed version of the pack, you could find that over on my Patreon. A huge thanks to everyone who's already purchased any of my sample packs. It's really a huge support to this channel. So we know the Digitakt's overall role in this setup. Let's actually break down and zero in on all of these tracks down here, the drum tracks. Let's just sort of play around with these layers and experiment with the feeling that it gives us. From the top, I'm getting straight up tribal techno vibes from these drums. Altogether, there's a lot going on here, and that's sort of the point, because the idea is that this is an entire track, right? Like all of this is happening on one pattern, and that entire pattern is the track. So we need a lot of elements to work within those boundaries. One thing that really stands out to me is the amount of hi-hats that I use. So this is like a rolling 909 sort of sound, all one shots. These are just the upbeats, which clearly I've EQ'd a little bit differently. You can see here that the filter is, I've pushed the resonance up here at the high end, whereas these ones, they're basically just flat. Then this third set of hi-hats, you can see that I've sort of pulled the filter down. The envelope is pulled down a little bit too. So this is in the context of the entire groove. These hi-hats are sort of felt but not heard. They give that sort of tribal vibe, but with everything else going on, it's kind of hard to hear them. It's more of a feeling thing. I added a downbeat clap, which is a classic techno move. I felt it was necessary because there's so many other odd time things that are going on, especially with the synth parts, which we'll get into. I felt like it was necessary to have something that was just super foundational if I needed it, if I sort of get lost in the groove. And speaking of polyrhythms, the only polyrhythmic thing that I added here was on these rims. So let me get those going. So what I've done here, function page, and you can see here that I've set this to a 5-step length. If I want to change this, I can. I felt like 5 just felt good. That's one of many cool things that the Digitakt sequencer is capable of doing. You could separate the pattern length or the step length per track. And this is a true odd time. It's set to infinite. If I set this to, let's say 16, it's no longer a true 5-note pattern that just repeats. A true odd time, it's resetting every 16 steps. And this is something that's just fun to experiment with on other percussive patterns. So let's say on this rolling hi-hat thing, I'm going to change this to 14 steps and see what happens. I kind of like it better, honestly. So let's just leave it. Let's just leave it like that. Yeah, something I was very intentional with these drums is no matter what layer or layers that I choose to combine together, it works. Like there's something there. Let's bring in a melodic part with it as well. Just to give a little bit more context. So just the hi-hats, take these out. Here comes the drum fill. Maybe just a kick with the clap. Like everything just fits. So there's a lot of room to change things around and to build things and to vamp and create a longer track. I could sit on this for maybe 5 minutes or longer just on this one idea. That's the whole idea of this approach for me. And it kind of just worked out that with the melodic parts, let's mute a few of these, unmute all of the melodic tracks. It sort of works out in the same way. So I have 4 ideas here. Usually I keep the bass going. I don't change the bass. So this is one idea. That's another idea. And of course, no matter how I combine them, I mean, it does get pretty busy if they're all playing together. But you can sort of find a sweet spot. And since we are now taking a closer look at the PerFourmer, let's take a look at the PerFourmer parts. In terms of polyrhythmic stuff, which again is all sequenced through the Digitakt, this is where things get a little bit heavier or more experimental. Looking at this first bass part, let's go to function page. This is in 7. In terms of how I actually entered in these bass parts or all of the melodic parts, I did it in such a simple way. I didn't open up the keyboard and like actually play anything into the unit. Plugged in the first 3 notes and then went over to my trig page and changed the notes on each of these specific steps. That ended up being my bass line in 7. But I am in a different scale. I'm in the Spanish scale, so it confined me to those notes. On the PerFourmer itself, triangle wave, 0 resonance, full attack, so it's a very percussive sound, of course. With some of the sounds here, I am adding a bit of modulation, playing with the LFO, which is controlling the cutoff, just to add some sort of motion. But with the bass, none of that. I basically treat it as another drum and I want it to be solid all the time, just like with the kick. Speaking of adding modulation, on the second channel, this voice here. So the LFO, right now it's usually, I usually leave it around 50% or maybe a little bit lower, so there's a bit of movement. Even if I'm not touching it, it's like having a 3rd or 4th hand. But if I blast it to 100%, now you can really hear what it's doing, and I could of course play with that, make it a bit more dramatic. Let's take out the kick and add the claps and the rim. And then we'll go to the second voice, function page, and this is playing in 10. A little pro tip here, by the way, if you want to play around with your melody, essentially, you could, now it's a different melody. Play it in 7. That being said, to come in with like a drop, it's difficult to be on 2 pages at the same time. That's where the RMX 1000 could maybe come in. Just because it's so easy. One last melodic element as well, and it's this here, that pad, which sounds great. And this is actually a default like stock sample from the Digitakt, and I actually dropped it in after I came up with all the melodic parts, and it just fit. So to reiterate, this gives us a lot to work with. We have this pad, we have 4 other melodic voices, monophonic, 7 layers of drums to work with, and then we have like a little transition effects machine for the PerFourmer. The Digitakt is like the mastermind behind this whole setup. It's carrying everything. Insanely fun, fluid, and dare I say, addictive. Would love to hear your comments on this setup if you have any. And that's it. Thanks for being here and hope to see you guys soon.